Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Property Pulse podcast. I'm Jeff Tompkins, your host and founder of GCD Property, dedicated to helping you navigate the real estate market in Southeast Queensland. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you to Raymond Hempstead, founder and managing director of Supervest, to share the benefits of property investment within your self-managed super fund.
Welcome to the Property Pulse podcast, your prime source for Southeast Queensland real estate insights. Understand the latest property data in Queensland to grow your net worth, as Jeff Tompkins interviews industry experts to give you the latest market updates.
Welcome to the Property Pulse podcast. Today we're privileged to have Raymond Hempstead with us. Raymond boasts a wealth of experience. Commencing with real estate sales in Canberra, he transitioned to a junior accountant role in Sydney, gaining exposure to construction projects. Later, he excelled in commercial accounting with an Australian-Chinese textile joint venture, demonstrating strong business acumen, cultural adaptability, and language skills. Raymond is currently in the self-managed super fund property investment space at the helm of Supervest, creating generational wealth for countless individuals. Thanks for joining us today, Raymond.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate you having me on board.
You're more than welcome. Now, for our viewers today, watching today, can you give us a bit of a background about your business experience and how Supervest really came about?
Okay. As you said, I left school, started in real estate quite a number of years ago, selling land and house packages in North Lyneham ACT when it was a greenfield site. Within 6 months, I realised I hated property. I hated selling it. So then I moved to Sydney, became an accountant, and during that period of time, I got a lot of business experience, both as an employee, but then also self-employed. And about 7 years ago, I got back into real estate, which my wife always laughs at, selling land and house packages to accountants and financial planners. And we had a couple of clients we'd sold some high cash flow properties to. The land was untitled. And 6 months later, when the land was titled, they came back to me and they said, Raymond, we want to put this into an SMSF. I said, okay. Now, there's some accounting background coming in. The question, I said, have you got a self-managed super fund set up? No. Okay. Have you got $2 million cash? Because there was 2 properties, because you can't build in a super fund. And they said no. So I lost those 2 deals. But at that same time, a lot of stuff came together, because I'd watched my dad lose money in his super fund by taking wrong advice a number of years earlier.
Right.
I watched him retire on the government pension. And then I saw him get sick, and he got very sick and he was dying, to the point where, even though he knew he was dying, his biggest stress was how he was going to look after mum after he passed. Now, having my dad as my hero, see your hero go through that struggle, all of these things came together at once. And so I looked at it and thinking, how do I invest for myself? I choose the block of land, I choose the location, I choose the style, I go and get funding, and I build it and make money and positive cash flow. And so in coming up with that, doing that in a self-managed super fund using debt is actually illegal. You can't do it. So I came up with a business plan, applied to the ATO, got a public product ruling against what we're doing, just to say, yep, we can do it. And then that was the birth of Supervest. So it sounds simple, but there's a lot behind it as well.
Sure. That's a great story to hear. And obviously now you've got your passion back for property, Raymond.
Yeah, I have indeed. But similar to yourself, what is it, 2014, you got into the property market, and what do you specialise in?
Yeah, so I started in property at a young age, actually had my first investment property in New Zealand in my probably mid-20s. And I really, at that stage, didn't have any guidance or really didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew that property was a great way to increase your wealth. So I jotted the numbers down and the cash flow on a bit of paper and worked out I could probably afford to hold that property. And then I went on to buy a block of land, build 2 new builds over there, started to build up a portfolio. And then I was in the building trade, so I had my own texture coating rendering company in New Zealand, came to Australia for a new start, and I had to start my property acquisition journey all over again. So I always had that passion, was in the building trade, and really at an age where I'd had enough of the building trade, a few injuries and things like that, falling off scaffold, which is never fun. And again, I had that passion for property. So hence transitioning into the wealth creation, I really love helping property investors build their wealth through real estate. Done it myself and continue to do it. And that's really how about, GCT Property came about. I was working for other companies. And then much like yourself, you saw how you could improve things and run a bit of business model and really got into this space. So I know a lot of investors are looking for these high cash flow properties, low maintenance properties within their self-managed super funds. That's the ideal investment property, right? High cash flow, low maintenance.
Absolutely.
I've had a lot of older high maintenance properties in the past for investment and absolute nightmare. So I'd go down this path myself. So we do a lot of new 2-part contracts, but we are seeing a lot more clients come into this space in the self-managed super funds. So, and they obviously, as we talked about, they need to be a single contract. So can you explain the SuperVest model, how it combines this and works for your investor clients in a single contract, Raymond?
Yeah, no, thank you. When you're buying property in a self-managed super fund, it has to be what they call a single acquirable asset. It has to be a completed property. Now, you've got two choices. You can go and buy, and you see it all over the place, you can go and buy an established property that's 15, 20 years old. You might put a granny flat out the back, and it can be positive geared. But when you look at the fact that this property is going to be supporting you in retirement, so if you've got 15, 20, 25 years or more to go before you're retired, and you're buying an old property already, the likelihood it's going to be positive cash flow or the maintenance costs are going to be minimal when you retire, a lot less if you're buying an old property. So my focus in what we talk about is building brand new properties inside a self-managed super fund. That gives a couple of things. One, it gives the longevity of the property. So when you do get to retirement, you've got a stable income from that, minimizes the costs, but also you're picking up the capital gain on the property that you're building. So it literally, yes, you pick up long-term growth, but that gain that you make when you're building a property, if you're buying an established property, you're paying that to someone else. Why should you pay someone else if you can build it yourself now?
Correct. Great. And I think, again, I've experienced those older high maintenance properties myself, and they take a lot of your cash flow as well if it's negatively geared. So I'm on the same page. We try and look for high cash flow property. So with these properties, in these single contracts, will the banks lend us money in a super fund? Of course, we can't give financial advice today, but from case studies, and how does it work in terms of one of these properties on a typical case, in terms of you pay a deposit up front and do you pay the balance during construction or at the end of construction, handover? How does that sort of work with the SuperVest model?
That's a good question. We see some clients that pay cash.
Right.
Now, that's a discussion they've got to have with their financial advisors. But for me, if I'm looking at building property, why am I putting, whether it's $800,000, say it's $1 million, why am I putting $1 million cash into a property when I could leverage that and buy multiple properties? Because when you set it up correctly under a single part contract inside an SMSF, you put down a 35% deposit at the start, and then SuperVest, we actually fund the process, the 65%. We fund that. Once the property's finished, now you get the funding of the 65%, and we're seeing a lot of people go to 80% lens and therefore put 15% back into their super fund, so they're closer to going a second and third time building positive cash flow properties. Because the properties, as you said, high cash flow, positive properties, so all the expenses are covered and there's additional money coming in, so that builds up your super even faster. But you get that benefit in building great properties inside your super fund.
Yeah, fantastic. And it really helps build your wealth and long term. Now, we, as you mentioned, a lot of these purpose-built high cash flow properties are 2-part contracts. I've built a couple of myself, but trying to get them in a single contract. So if we've got a block of land, or we find a block of land and we've got a trusted builder that we work with, and it's going to be a 2-part contract, can you work with us to convert that into a single part contract for our clients or ourselves?
Every day of the week. That's what we do each week. whether you find it or we find it and work with you, but because you're specialised in this area, you find great properties all the time. So being able to find the block of land and the builder, the process is that you'll choose it or your clients choose it. We Supervest settle on the block of land.
Right.
We then engage the builder and we contract with the builder. At the same time as we're doing that, we issue you a single part contract to your self-managed super fund. What that does, you now are effectively buying off the plan the house that you're looking to build inside your super fund. So you put a 35% deposit down. You don't do anything now until the completion, because my team will work with the builder and manage that process all the way along to the point where you, at completion, you have a fully finished property. The banks love it because it's a finished property. It fits into the CIS Act and covers all those requirements. And now you've got a property that can build your wealth moving forward in your super fund.
Yeah, and I guess the other upside is in the current market we're seeing in southeast Queensland, where property market's growing that quick. By the time you've gone through completion, your property's already gained in value and you've got a surplus equity in your property on settlement, which is great. And the clients don't have to have those progress payments during construction.
Exactly. And I suppose that the only difference in if you've built property outside of super, you can go back to, as the property goes up in value, you can go back to the bank and leverage against equity in that and draw down more money. Inside a self-managed super fund, you don't have that ability, because during the build process, the super fund doesn't actually own the property. It's got a purchase price that it's buying it for. So during the build process, as the land prices go up, especially in southeast Queensland, when you go back to the bank, you're now getting it valued at the higher price. So you're still paying the price that we started at the start. And if it's gone up $100,000 or $200,000, you're now getting your loan at the higher value. So you're now in a one only time, you're now leveraging against equity that you've grown in that period of time, which if you went out and bought an established property, you can never do that in a self-managed super fund. So that's a really neat benefit that you've got in doing it the way we do it.
Fantastic. And I guess one of the other benefits is a lot of these properties, for those viewers that aren't aware, a lot of these high cash flow purpose-built properties are sold off-market. So Listing Loop's internal market research has identified that off-market transactions are now making up to 20% of the Australian's total property market. As a business-to-business model that we work with ourselves, our clients now have access to more property to select from.
Yeah, but that comes back to working with professionals like yourself that know where to look for the off-market properties. It's not going like the old days, going to the real estate agents and looking at the window and I've got to buy that block. These never even hit the real estate agents. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So it gives our clients, our investor clients, an opportunity to secure something. I think the other thing I'm seeing as a buyer's agent work with new and existing properties, we're looking at existing properties now, we're seeing a lot more competition. So we're up against other buyer's agents. We've got homeowners that are emotionally attached to these properties. So from an investor's point of view, we don't want to overpay for that property. But quite often the market demands that the properties are selling above the actual market valuation. And we're seeing that now in the CoreLogic data. So the average house price for many suburbs around Australia, the median selling price is actually higher than the median listing price on realestate.com, which is crazy, right?
Yeah. And in southeast Queensland, I don't see it changing. Again, no financial advice, but with the Olympics coming and the whole growth up through southeast Queensland, I don't see that changing very soon.
Absolutely not. We're in southeast Queensland and it's amazing. Every week there's more cars on the roads, there's more people, there's new service stations, schools, university extensions, hospital extensions. It's massive. So there's a real opportunity point for those investors looking to make strong capital growth in this current market because of this huge population growth we've got in Australia and specifically in southeast Queensland.
But also you look at what the government in Queensland doing, the infrastructure that they're putting in place, and they're not just building some houses 50 miles away where there's no infrastructure. They're actually putting the infrastructure, they're putting the good roads in, they're putting the schools, they're putting the hospitals, they're putting the infrastructure in to support the property investors in getting great assets. So we've got I don't say this very often. We've actually got a good partner in the government at this time.
Yes, yeah, they're allowing this massive immigration. I saw the announcement last week, another massive immigration coming over the next 5 years, and we're not building enough new homes to support that. Anyone, I think, sitting on the fence and thinking about whether they should get into real estate or not, look at the figures, the demographics, the numbers, listen to the experts. That tells you a pretty strong case for continuing capital growth. So we talked about these new high cash flow properties. So if clients have got a particular requirement for a property in their super funds through Supervest. So, for example, someone living in Sydney or Melbourne looking to buy an apartment on the Gold Coast on the beach to rent out for the next few years and then use it as a property to retire to. Can you source property in different property types all around Australia through Supervest, Raymond?
We deal all over Australia. The only places we're not building at the moment is Northern Territory and ACT. And that's not because we can't do it. People just haven't chosen to go there.
Right.
So what they're looking at, especially with self-managed super fund, they're looking at where can I invest my money to get the best return, both capital growth but also cash flow. And Southeast Queensland trumps quite a bit. We've got some people in South Australia. Again, now I'm a Queanbeyan boy. As we said at the start, I sold in Canberra. If you find something in Queanbeyan that you think is a great investment, we'll build in Queanbeyan.
Right.
If you want to do Tasmania, Victoria, Queensland, it's your money. Where are you getting your advice from professionals like yourself, Jeff, and your financial advisor and your accountant? Where is the best place for you to put your money to give you the result that's going to hit your goals and dreams and aspirations for your retirement? And so that's what we give, I suppose. We've got a goal of changing 100,000 families' lives over the next 10 years in Supervest.
Wow.
So that people, so they don't end up like my dad on the government pension.
Yeah.
But the scary thing is, I think the stats are around 64% of Australians are going to end up on the government pension or part government pension. And even though they might have $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 in their industry or retail super funds, by the time they retire, they'll be getting money from their super fund, and part or all of their money will be coming from the government pension.
Right.
Because year on year, they'll be drawing down the capital, so the money that they've saved. So when they finally they pass on, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
But when people get educated that they can now build bricks and mortar, they can pull their money from the industry super funds, bring it into Australia, because over 50% of our money in industry and retail super funds is building some other country. It's not building Australia.
Wow.
So when we show them there's a choice and they get some good advice and they bring their money back into a self-managed super fund, they're building Australian homes. They're building Australian jobs. They're building Australian communities, and they're building the Australian lifestyle. So when they retire, they can live off of the positive cash flow coming from the assets.
Right.
And when they die, they've now got fully paid off houses that they can leave to their kids or their grandkids. And so, everybody that's got kids, if they're like me, my mum and dad wanted to make sure that I had a better start in life than they had.
Yep.
I want the same thing for my kids. But if I work all my life and I get to the end of my life and I've saved my super and then I've had to spend my super to support myself in retirement, and it gets to the end, I can change what I do and how we educate our kids. But if I've got the same choice, but I can leave them fully paid off assets, isn't that a much bigger hand up when we pass on?
Oh, 100%. I built my daughter a new house on the Gold Coast a few years ago. It's been finished 4 years roughly now. And the equity gain, now we're pulling the equity out for her to get into investment property. I wish I had someone guiding me like that, and she'll be at a time where she's got lots of capacity to do that multiple times. I think, I'm seeing a lot more generational wealth coming from those that have taken the step, invested themselves, and can pass that down, that knowledge and those assets to for someone getting started in real estate. It's obviously getting much tougher, but for those that can build these assets. And we're also on a moral compass, we're also helping The housing crisis shortage that we're currently in Australia, the government's letting massive immigration in. We're not building enough new homes. So as an investor, we're also providing more accommodation, which is really needed as well.
Yeah, always going to be part of the population of Australia that aren't going to be owning a home. And we're providing quality accommodation for those families. So we're not building, what we're building are quality homes.
Right.
Like when I look at it, my wife said, would she like to live there? Then we can build it. That's the standard. So if we're doing the same thing and passing that on and providing that quality to people, we're giving them quality assets, they pick up the generational wealth, they pick up the capital gains. And when you think about it, a self-managed super fund, in my opinion, this is the best tax vehicle in Australia to hold long-term wealth.
Right.
Because you're paying 15% tax on your profits.
Right.
And if you sell it, you pay 10% capital gains up to you retire. Now, if you do that outside of super, you're paying 30%, or if you own it in your own name, you're probably paying 47%. So as long as people don't need to use the money that they're making out of their investment, and they can afford, and they don't need to live on it, why wouldn't you consider going down that path with a 15% tax rate? So that means you've got another 32% income that you can put back into investment and capital growth and generational wealth and looking after yourself in retirement.
Okay, so I know for not all investors can borrow money, so it might be a situation where they're close to retirement, can't get a loan, or don't have enough cash, or their income doesn't support a loan from the banks. So those with a smaller amount in their super or outside their super, but still would love to have the opportunity to invest in real estate, I know you've come up with a great product to really give those investors an opportunity to take advantage of the capital growth of real estate under your tech program, which is Tenants in Common. Please explain, Raymond, how that sort of works.
No, thanks, Jeff. And this, now, not tooting my own horn, but it is a great product that we developed about 12 months ago. It recognises the fact that a lot of Australians would like to get into high cash flow properties, but they don't have enough money. And so what we've done, we've taken the properties that you sell every day of the week and provide to your clients, the high cash flow properties. We actually buy them. We hold 65%. And we then sell 35% under Tenants in Common in 5% shares. So for 5%, you could own $65,000, $70,000. You can now own and be on title to a high cash flow property. And for example, if that property is returning 9%, then you're making 9% plus capital growth on that property.
Wow.
And like with rent, it comes back every month. So you receive a monthly income. So it's a very strong option. When you think about Tenants in Common, it's been around since the 1800s. Even today, partners are owning property instead of under joint tenancy, like normal husband and wives or partners, that's one way. Or Tenants in Common, it gives you the ability to own a specific percentage of a property.
Right.
So that we've used that legislation and being able to brought this to market. So people, as you said, if they're inside super and they've only got a low balance and they want to get into property, or so they can do both. If they're outside super and they want to get into property, so one of the examples we've got through a broker, a mortgage broker. He had a client. Their stress point was, how are they going to afford, or how are they going to help their kids get into property, because the kids are 4 and 5 when the kids are 18, 20. So what they've done, they've actually taken a redraw off their mortgage. They've bought 3 tick properties and they put them in a family trust. And so over the next 18, 20 years, those properties will go up in value and they can give them to the kids. But on the other side, because the return on the property is around the 9%, it's actually going to help them pay off their mortgage faster as well, while they're providing for their kids.
Wow. That's a fantastic product. Many years ago, I was in a position I wanted to build my property portfolio. A good mate of mine wanted to do the same. We couldn't do it on our own. We didn't have the borrowing capacity, so we actually did that exact thing. We bought 50% shares and we built a high cash flow dual occupancy property.
Nice.
So this product it's amazing. I think it's going to open up to so many investors that would love to get into real estate but don't have the $500,000 or $1 million to invest or can't get a loan. So you're targeting higher cash flow type properties, Raymond, in this tech program?
All of them are high cash flow properties.
Okay.
So whether they're co-living or the rooming houses or NDIS, and they're very specific NDIS properties that we work with in that space, but how we're providing benefit to the community in providing the accommodation, but then making sure that the cash flow's there to give back to the investors as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. And how would go, so if they own a 5% share in a property and so they want to exit that share in 5 years' time, can they sell the shares in that property?
Yeah, so we have an agreement in the contract that I'll purchase the property back under a commercial valuation twice a year. So every 6 months. So if they want to sell it back to us, they can. Or they can come to you and you can sell it, or they can go to a real estate agent. It's their property. They don't have to ask anybody to sell it because they control that section of the property. So they've got total control.
Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant option. I think this product is a great option for those. Most of us prefer property over shares. The benefit is with this is obviously you're getting the yield plus you're getting the capital growth, which unlike other investments is you're getting the best of both worlds. Fantastic. Yeah. So as we start to wrap up the podcast, we'll touch on our joint interest in running, Raymond. Just like investing in real estate, running a marathon takes a lot of strong-willed determination and saying yes, not saying
Absolutely.
I'll think about it or one day I'll do it. It's making a conscious decision. You'll only make money in real estate if you say yes and take advantage of the opportunity, just preparing for a marathon. So I understand you're running the Sydney Marathon in aid of Beyond Blue for mental health. Tell us, I'm really interested to know, and I'm sure the audience will take a lot of insight and inspiration from this story. How's your preparation going, and how did you start coming about this, deciding to do your first marathon?
No, thank you. I've never run a marathon before. When I was 15, 16, I ran at state level in cross country with the school that I was with, and then I've been fairly fit the rest of my life. Last year, some of our staff, they made a decision that they were going to run the marathon. They were doing some training. And I sat in one of the teams meeting. I thought, yeah, that's a good idea, and just let it pass. And then end of January, one of the guys came back and said he tore his hamstring while training. Actually, I think he was playing cricket. And I'm sitting in another teams meeting. I'm thinking they talked about it. And Jones, one of our staff, he said he's going to keep on training. And I said, I'll do that. So it was like out of the blue, even though I might have been thinking about it. But then I said, okay, like with property investing, if you try and do it yourself and try and learn, you make mistakes.
Yep.
You always need a coach. You always need someone that's been down the road before you. Or you don't need it, but if you've got that choice, you'll go a lot further,
Definitely.
A lot faster.
100%.
And so I reached out to my daughter's into stunting, and she's got a personal trainer that's actually run marathons. So I reached out to Michelle, got some advice from Michelle, got some direction, and started a plan to be able to build up to the point where from January to by the 31st of August, I'll be in the position where I'll run 42 Ks for the first time. I'll compete for 42 Ks for the first time.
Wow.
But along the way, I like what you said, there's the mental challenges that you go through with running.
Yep.
And I think you experience the same thing with yours. It's how do we encourage people around us?
Yes.
To do better or to see a little bit further than what they can see now, because they can see, okay, if Raymond can do it or Jeff can do it, I might be able to just do a little bit of that. And so whether it's property investing or whether it's running, it's like, how do we educate and motivate people to see a bigger picture of their life for themselves?
I agree 100%. 2 years ago now, I ran the Gold Coast Marathon and I attempted to run it backwards in the aid of supporting mental health. And the goal was really to inspire people and show that, like, we all have boundaries or limits. We self-impose limits on us to show that you really, anything's possible. It was terrible, wasn't a lot of fun. But when you push yourself beyond those limits, you really gain a lot of confidence, I think, Raymond, and you learn a lot about yourself. And if you can inspire, like you said, other people, that's the perfect sort of outcome. So for those that are watching today, I'd love to hear your running stories. If you need any help or guidance, welcome to reach out to either of us. And we can sit.
But like I find society tries to hold us down.
Yep.
And not allow us to think big. Like it's like the Australian tall poppy syndrome. Each individual has got amazing ability to do more than what we can do. sometimes we've just got to push past that pain barrier to be able to find that next level. And having the right people around you to encourage you to do that. And I find that Beyond Blue is part of that encouragement for people that are suffering.
Sure.
They just need that next leg up, or that little bit of lift.
100%. I agree. When I was running the marathon backwards, thousands of people out on the course, had to have friends and supporters around me, fueling me, making sure I didn't run into other people, didn't run into me. It was chaos, but hey, you learn a bit and you work.
That's an amazing effort. Like 42 kilometers backwards. But yeah, that just shows the level of professionalism and dedication you've got to what you believe in.
Thank you.
But I see that you do that. You bring that into your business life and what you're doing with your clients and helping them move forward.
So 100%.
Amazing.
When we see our clients build wealth through property, it's a first-time buyer or investor building their portfolio. I think our industry is very rewarding when you can get it right and help people. That's a very good thing. We're providing more accommodation and we're helping our clients build wealth. It's a great industry to be in, Raymond.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's very good, very exciting.
Okay, thank you for taking your time out of your busy day, Raymond. It's been an absolute inspiration. It's a great product. I'm a big believer in these. We're seeing more clients looking to buy property in the self-managed super funds and this Tenants in Common product. Great products out there. Industry expert, leading by example. I really appreciate your time and experience today with joining us.
No, Jeff, I appreciate it. And it's always great sharing time and experiences with yourself and with your audience as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thanks for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this podcast and taken some knowledge out of it and would like to share that, please share the episode. We'd love to inspire other people to get into real estate and build wealth through property. We'd love to leave us a review of how it helps others find our podcast and benefit from the content we share. Remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with the latest episodes. And if you'd like to find out more about the SuperVest product within the Self-Managed Super Fund, please contact me and we can explain how we can help you.